Intruder is the latest stalker thriller film to come from Sony Screen Gems, and this film is also from the director of Traffic, which came out last year. This film stars Michael Ealy and Megan Good as this couple, Scott and Annie, who are looking to buy a new house. They're very successful in life thanks to Michael Ealy's character, so they find this house that's like surrounded by several acres of land. It's perfect for Annie because she can redo it and make everything so nice, and he's just happy for her, and they buy the house from this man named Charlie Peck, played by Dennis Quaid. So they get the house and they're like, alright, we're good. It turns out, though, that Charlie really likes this house, and he keeps dropping by a lot, even though he says he's going to be moving to Florida soon. And then it turns out his intentions are a little bit more sinister than just, I'm just your friendly neighborhood guy who likes his house too much. You'd think this is a movie that I was not anticipating at all, and you'd think also by the lateness of this review that this was a movie that I didn't even see or bother checking out. Because this movie is another Sony Screen Gems thriller, very similar to other films they've made like No Good Deed, The Perfect Guy, and When the Bow Breaks. It's very familiar to what they have done before with other stalker thrillers before. I thought they were done with that because it's been like 3 years since When the Bow Breaks, but I guess not. And this movie is also from the director Deon Taylor, who not only directed Traffic, which was on my worst list of last year if you remember, but he also directed a film called Meet the Blacks, which is so awful and so like offensive. I'm surprised anyone let that get made. So considering those two elements, why was I looking forward to this film? Well, the trailer came out and I was instantly hooked. I wanted to see a good, just guilty pleasure kind of stalker film. I didn't expect it to be any good, technically speaking, but I just wanted a really fun ride with this. And I watched it in May, back in May. I actually did see it in theaters, and I didn't review it maybe because I think I had this fear deep down that I was going to be like the only one who had like a guilty pleasure kind of love for it. I then watched it again 2 days ago with some friends on this website Rabbit, and the fact that I was laughing not just about the same but even harder than I was the first time, but they were also laughing, kind of just confirmed that, you know what, it's okay to talk about this thing, to admit that you really love this movie, because I did. It's awful, it's a terrible movie, technically speaking, and performance-wise, dialogue, writing-wise, but goddamn, it's one of the most entertaining movies to come out this whole year. Writing-wise, this movie is not good at all. The main couple, Annie and Scott, that there's really nothing to them other than they're young, and the husband has a really successful career, and she's kind of just the stay-at-home wife. But that's pretty much it. It doesn't help that they also don't give these characters much to go with. Michael Ealy, they insert just a random thing, probably last minute, where he was like, my brother got gunned down in the street, so I don't like guns, and I don't like how Dennis Quaid has guns all the time. That literally felt like a shoehorned in plot element just so there can be some character arc of some kind for the end of the film, but trust me, it doesn't lead anywhere special, and it doesn't even really make all that much sense. Also, there's this cheating backstory that they insert into their relationship history that barely gets fleshed out at all, and it only has one moment where she gets suspicious of him, but it's okay because like 2 scenes later they smash and make up. And that's it. It also doesn't help that Annie is one of the dumbest characters of 2019. It's so obvious, like, hey, don't let Charlie come back because he keeps coming back even though he says he's leaving. We can't keep letting him come. There's something weird about the guy. She keeps letting him come back every single time. Every time he shows up randomly, she's not like, hey, get out of here. I'm calling the police. Husband's on the way. We don't want you here. She's always like, oh, well, I'm going to take pity on him. Why don't you come inside? She's the dumbest character ever. However, it's because of her character that enables Charlie Peck to keep coming back. So he's in throughout the movie. And Dennis Quaid as this character, he needs an Oscar, baby. He needs an Oscar for Best Actor. Because he is so goddamn fun in this movie. Like, his character introduction scene, Annie and Scott come in like, oh, I wonder where the owner is, let's wander around the backyard. And then just this deer comes after them, and Dennis Quaid's just running through like this angry face and a gun, he just shoots him multiple times, and then this couple's like, oh my god, what are you doing? He's like, oh hey, how are you doing? Like, I don't mind them, there's a warrant out for them. Charlie Peck, I own the house. I was like, I am so into this! Throughout the movie, he's putting on just this lovable, goofball, charming attitude. His smile is always like cheek to cheek. But then there's these moments too where someone will say something that kind of makes him mad and it kind of irks him off. And there's just these moments where it's just, his face just goes fucking long and he's just staring off in the distance. It's like, oh my god, this guy's insane. And there's literally one moment They didn't have to put it in, but they did. There's a moment where he's at a dinner table. It's Thanksgiving. Annie, of course, invited him to be there against Scott's wishes. But he's there, and Scott's friend, I forget his name, I think it's Mike, is like saying something that really pissed him off. So he's like, "Hey, can you fill up my glass?" And Dennis Quaid's like, "Oh yeah, of course." Whack! And he whacks him on the head with a bottle, and it's like, oh my god, it's only 20 minutes in the movie, he's already going crazy? And then it's just, oh nope, that's just a vision in his head. Just so you all know, there is no mystery here as far as if he's crazy or not. We're not going to build up that tension. It's just, right there. He's crazy. He's getting these visions of killing people. Jesus Christ, it was perfect. Because that's something you don't want to do. You don't want to... we already know Dennis Quaid's crazy, right? You don't want to prolong his inevitable turn. You should probably show that off as soon as possible, and they do. His performance was already lovable at the beginning because he does have that lovable persona on, but when he starts to switch and then the rest of the movie is just him losing his mind, loved it. I loved it. So some people like to say that the third act is like the best part of this movie. I'd say the entire movie is about the same as the third act as far as crazy goes. It's just that the third act is when everything is coming to a head. Honestly, every time Dennis Quaid comes by, you're like, yes, I want him to be here. You are actively rooting for the villain. And I have never seen that before in a stalker film. In any of the Screen Gem movies, but in this movie, you're actually actively rooting for him. It shouldn't be possible, but it is. And you want to know why it's possible? Because of Dennis Quaid. Give him the Oscar already. The main couple is so dumb, and they have no development really, and they're just so kind of that you're like, I want to see Dennis Quaid mess with them. And you do. He keeps showing up, and it's perfect. There's literally one moment where Michael Ealy is like, he's hearing teenagers out in the woods. He runs out, and you get that shot in the trailer where the light goes by, and you see Dennis Quaid just standing, like, a couple feet to the right. And you're wondering, like, okay, if Michael Ealy turns in that direction and sees him, what's the plan after that? Like, you're so close to him. Michael Ealy can easily, like, kind of notice him in the corner of his eye, like, holy fuck, what are you doing here, dude? Like, what was the plan after that? And there's a moment, like I said before, there's one scene where Annie thinks Scott is cheating. That's where that kind of fits in and then doesn't go anywhere. And that means Scott is now on the couch. He's in the couch room. He wakes up. He's like doing like that groggy, like eye close, eye open. And there's one part where they're showing the shot from his point of view. Open door, nothing's there, closes his eyes, but then he kind of opens it again like when a thunder strike happens, and you see Dennis Quaid there, like standing like in all black, staring menacingly at him, and then they like quick cut, and he's gone like a ghost. And I was like, what? Is Dennis Quaid a freaking ghost now? What's going on? And so you're like, okay, is that the twist of the movie, that he's a ghost, and he's actually haunting this place? That's why he's still here? Honestly, that'd make the movie make more sense. But he disappears so quickly, and Scott's like, oh my gosh, I gotta go back downstairs, where is he? And he starts looking around, and we see a shadow come up, but I think we all know it's Annie because it's very short. But the movie thinks you're stupid and makes you think, oh, that's Dennis Quaid. So after she says, Scott, what are you doing? And it's like, just like that, Scott, what are you doing? They insert the loud jump scare sound effect. We already can tell it's her, but because Scott jumped in the scene, they have to put in a loud sound effect that goes... And it's the kind of loud sound effect that literally lingers. Like, it lingers for a while. It's not like a quick boom. It's just a... Like something like that. But we already knew it was Annie, so what was the point of having the jump scare? Like, we could tell. But that's when they make up like, hey, Scott, you're paranoid. Let's smash on the carpet right now. It's Christmas. So they do, but in the corner watching them smash on the floor is Dennis Quaid again. He just kind of like hands in his pocket and then nonchalantly just kind of walks away. It's like, bro, okay, what is going on? I have to talk about this film with spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, please do, and don't finish that. You should probably just see whatever they do, because you'll get a better experience out of it. But there's a part where Michael Ealy gets drunk and shows up at this hotel bar where Dennis Quaid is supposed to be staying at, and he's there, he's in the bar, and Michael Ealy's drunkenly telling him, hey, stay away from my wife. cuck, go to Florida, jerk, I don't want you here anymore, you suck. And Scott he's the kind of guy that like he'll put up like the nice front, but he'll throw in something that's like, all right, have a nice time, buddy, and like kind of in a patronizing kind of way. So seeing that just kind of all build up to this moment, and you're like, all right, I wonder how Dennis Quaid's gonna get him back. And he does, runs him off the road, he ends up in the hospital. During this time, he goes to his wife's house, and he's like, I know your husband's in the hospital, so I brought you this pizza. I didn't eat anything when my wife was in the hospital when she was sick, so I just figured, I figured I'd stop by. What a charming man. She lets him in the house. And he's like, yeah, I'm in again, baby. But that's when, like I said, Scott's douchebag friend Mike comes back. He really is a douchebag. He sucks. So it was so satisfying to see this happen. Dennis Quaid sees him from the window, and he's like, oh God, I guess I gotta take care of this guy. So he tells Annie, like, hey, there's some kids out there, I'm gonna chase them away. So for the next 10 minutes, that's his excuse to just run out there. And he's got an axe in hand, he's ready to swing, but instead of doing that, he's like, oh, hey Mike, how you doing? And like have a conversation for a bit, and he gives him that conversation before he kills him, and it was so good. There's an earlier scene in the movie where Mike is smoking, drops the cigarette in the grass, and then you can tell Dennis Quaid's pissed off about that because later in his car, there's a little cigarette butt burn in the seat. So right before Dennis Quaid kills this dude, he's just like, hey, have a cigarette. You know what? I'll have one too. It's like, oh my God, it's about to go down, folks. And then the next couple seconds when he's laying out his plan to Mike, and don't worry, Mike's not gonna snitch him out later because, but he's just, it's so funny how he's just like, you believe in second chances. Like if you had the chance to get everything back, wouldn't you just go for it? And that's exactly what I'm doing. I am getting a second chance. And as soon as Scott's dead, then I'll be all good. And as soon as Mike just turns around like, what did you just say? Whack! And it's like, oh, yes! I was having a blast with this. And then the next morning, he's still in the house. He should have left by then, but he's still in the house. And he's taking a shower, and his creepy ass just like peers through the door. And just like, that Dennis Quaid smile comes on. He takes off his shirt as if like, oh, I guess he's literally ready to just jump in the shower. Okay, sure. Why not, I guess? But of course he can't. He leaves and he and Scott have a conversation. Scott comes back and tells Annie like, hey, how did Dennis Quaid know that I was in the hospital if he wasn't there or we didn't meet with him earlier? And Annie's like, oh yeah, I guess you're right. That's when they finally get on the same page. Finally, Jesus Christ. But this is when the movie gets even better. Scott finds out through Charlie Peck's daughter that Charlie Peck has actually been lying about how his wife kind of died of cancer, and he has to sell the house. He's moving in with his daughter in Florida. Daughter's not in Florida, she's in Maine, and she hates Dennis Quaid. And she thinks that Dennis Quaid made her mom shoot herself because she threatened divorce and to take away the house from him, and he loves that house. He's also a failing businessman. He's in a huge amount of debt, and apparently everyone in town knows that because Scott just walks up into a coffee shop in one scene, like about halfway through the movie, and there's a customer there like, hey, you bought Dennis Quaid's house, right? Man, there's a lot of exposition I can tell you right now. In fact, I'm going to put it out there right now. I bet if you walked up to anyone here, they'd have the same amount of information as me, apparently, because it's just common knowledge, and you somehow don't know about it, dumbass. But of course, at this time, he's rushing back home because his job's in New York, and they moved out to the country. He's like, I'm going to get home quick. Charlie Peck is already at the house with Annie, and Annie's like, hey, can you get out? So he does. Temporarily, we find out there's a secret door, like where the towel rack is. She pushes it open. There's a door leading into the bottom of the house, and it's just like the cellar. So Dennis Quaid wasn't staying at a hotel. He was always on the property. It's perfect! Mike's dead body is down there in the freezer, and he finds out where the path leads into like the shed outside the house. She looks out, literally looks out, and Dennis Quaid just like doing his hair like in the car, and he slightly looks to the left. Annie doesn't react. She's still like acting like, can he see me? Like, what is he doing? Like, she doesn't act like, oh, I just got caught. No, she's just like, what's he doing? Huh? Does he see me? Nah, that can't be it. And then he's just like, no, in like a different voice that's not even his. He's like, no, he starts sprinting towards the shed, and she's still like prolonging getting out of there. It was so well done. So she runs back into the house and tries to get Scott. Dennis Quaid's already there, knocks her out. Jesus Christ, does he knock her out. And after he does, he just gives the best line delivery of, what? ever. He's pissed off that, and he's like asking like, what? Like, why are you so upset? Why are you trying to fight me? And this is of course after he pushes her, knocks her the heck out, and he's just like, what? Why are you so mad at me? I'm just trying to chase you down and tie you up, dude, and have sex with you unconsensually. What? What's the problem? So this man takes the knocked out wife upstairs, and he's turning into a wild animal, essentially. Like, he's licking her stomach and like her boobs and like getting to her face, and he's like, it's like this animalistic sounds. I was almost expecting him to turn into a werewolf. Why? Because Scott comes home at this time. He's like, shh, be quiet. He shoves like a gag in her mouth, and he's like, he army crawls to the next room for no reason, really. But Scott is like, he's lurking around upstairs. Dennis Quaid, like a ninja, comes down from the ceiling and just tackles him and throws him over the balcony, hitting a chandelier. But while he's doing so, it's like a roar is inserted in. Like a roar. I thought he was going to turn into an animal. I was hoping he would, because once again, that would make the movie make a little bit more sense. Annie gets out of her restraint, so Dennis Quaid didn't do that good of a job. She locks the door. Dennis Quaid grabs a knife and just starts poking at it and does the "here's Johnny" thing, but doesn't say "here's Johnny," just goes "Annie!" and opens the door. And that's of course when Scott tackles him once again. They get into a little scuffle. Annie, I think it was a pair of scissors, or maybe it was the same knife Dennis Quaid had before, but she jabs him in the back right here. Does he die? Is he weakened? I mean, a little bit, but not entirely. You couldn't tell. At that moment, he lets out another, like another roar. Like, what are you doing? What? What is this editing, dude? Before a lot of the third act, you just had editing like, oh, they're about to smash, so let's play the pop song right here, slow-mo stuff, and just, just obnoxious editing kind of like that. That, of course, adds to this movie's guilty pleasure charm. But at that point, Annie and Scott are like, okay, we gotta get out of here. Charlie Peck wandered off somewhere. He's grabbed a gun from his secret cellar in the bottom of the house. He comes back in, shuts off all the lights. Completely dark, right? This is where the movie gets awesome. Annie and Scott are hiding in some room, and Charlie Peck's going upstairs. He does the most badass, reloading of his gun ever. He's just, kind of slowly walking and takes out the bullet, just flips it away and puts in another one. It's it's so cool! But he gets to the door, shoots it, kicks it down. He's like, where are these guys? I don't know where they are. All of a sudden, the first place you'd probably suspect, if you can't find them instantly by looking in, they're there. They're behind the door. They're like when you open the door and there's that little room before, it's that's where they are. He opens it. Michael Ealy has a bat, whacks him, and he just spits out blood. Oh god. He's finally down, and weakened enough for Michael Ealy to grab the gun, hold at him you stay down. Annie gets her phone and calls 911 hello, my husband just shot an intruder. Dennis Quaid thinks, hey, I shot all of the bullets, but Michael Ealy's like, check your pocket. There's one more in this thing. He's like, oh, I guess there is. Well, don't shoot me, man, come on. But Michael Ealy, let me remind you that earlier in the film, they shoehorned in a line about how his brother was gunned down in the streets. That's why he doesn't like guns. That's why he gets upset whenever Charlie brings a gun over to the house, and you get these awkward moments where he's like, don't bring guns here! Charlie, don't bring guns here, dude! I can't tell if they were trying to have some message of gun violence or anything, but there it is. There's the storyline, so where's it gonna lead? It literally only leads to Scott, with ease, picking up the gun, holding it at him, and then saying, go to hell, and shooting him! And that's when the film ends. It cuts, and it immediately transitions to the credits and a rap song plays. And the first time I saw it, I was in disbelief in the theater. I was like, oh my god, you gotta be kidding me. That's the end of the movie. Second time I saw it with my friends, I was rolling on the floor. Literally, I got out of the chair and I had to roll on the floor. I laughed for the next 10 minutes at the most. It's the funniest ending of all time. Scott just doesn't care that he has a gun. I'll use it with ease. Kaboom! Charlie's just dead. So, alright, cool. What happened after that? Did they discover the bodies down there? I mean, I guess so. Whatever. I guess happy ending for us. Annie, is she still a dumb bitch after this? I mean, maybe, probably, I don't know. The point I'm trying to make with this review, and why I had to tell you in depth about certain things that happened, is because This is a bad film, technically speaking. It's written terribly. It's terribly cliched and terribly predictable. The characters have really no development. The only fun performance is really Dennis Quaid. Everyone else is kind of bored, not gonna lie. And the direction isn't even all that good. There's that sex scene I mentioned earlier with the bad editing, and there's also other moments where the film isn't really edited all that well. There's literally a moment where there's like a few drone shots, like showing the city. Like you can tell it's a drone. Certain plot points just feel like they're shoehorned in there just so they can pad the movie's runtime out a bit. And could it have been an actual good thriller? I mean, probably. Any movie can be good just with the right writers and directors, but here's the thing. I kinda like it the way it is. I mean, sure, Dennis Quaid is like the only positive I have as far as everything else being objectively bad, and he actually, I think, doing a pretty solid, over-the-top job. But I like it just the way it is. Terrible. I love it for that, because Traffic last year was dull as hell, and Meet the Blacks was stupidly bad, awful, offensively bad. This movie is just the perfect, hey, we got a premise, and we're not the most talented people in the world, but we're gonna make it, and it's gonna be a ton of fun. And you know what, Deon Taylor? It was a ton of fun. If you can make more thrillers like The Intruder, please do. So objectively speaking, if I had to give this an actual grade, as far as like things that are bad and then there's one thing that saves it, Dennis Quaid, the grade would be a D-. That's the grade I'd give The Intruder. Like technically speaking, if I had to be like a professional right now, it's a D-, because that's exactly what this kind of film is. Everything about it is awful except for Dennis Quaid. There are certain moments where he's not there and you're kind of left with just kind of the boring characters and you're like, oh my god, really? But as soon as he comes back, it's like, oh well, all of a sudden I feel alive again. However, if I had to go with a guilty pleasure love for this movie, considering how much dumb shit is here, and how amazing that is for me, because I love watching a movie that's just so stupid if it's fun enough, and it was, I'd give this movie at least an A++++. And I'm not kidding! As far as guilty pleasures go, this is a really funny movie. I watched it with two of my friends, and I was afraid, like, is this gonna be like I watch it again, it's not as funny, are they not gonna like it as much? We laughed so hard throughout this movie, and then after the fact, through the credits, still laughing. My chest was literally hurting because I was laughing so much after the fact. This is a brilliant film. It deserves to be on the Criterion, it's Kino, it's amazing. Please watch this instantly if you have not already. It is so funny. But if you've seen The Intruder, leave in the comments below what you thought of it. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.